What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over everything you need to know about Fortnite Star Destroyer Bombardment update. As always, if you guys do find this video to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, comment down below what you think of this update, and if you would like to use me for support a creator when getting anything in the Fortnite item shop, it is just Evolve Jake. It is underneath the webcam at all times. So the new Star Destroyer Bombardment update just went live today, and the main content from this update is obviously going to be that you can pilot the Star Destroyer. There will be a portal that spawns in every game at second zone, and the first person to get to this portal goes through, and then you basically get rifted into the Star Destroyer, and then you get to use the guns on it to shoot down on players below. Enemies will be marked for you while you are in this Star Destroyer, but it follows a fixed path. You aren't able to actually fly it, from my understanding. I only got to pilot it one game. It flies how it's going to fly, and you just get to shoot what you see in that time. And the person controlling the ship only gets 90 seconds to use it, and then it despawns, and the player who is piloting it is kind of rifted out. So it's not something that's just going to dominate every game. It's not going to be something where like you get this and now you just auto win the game because no one can do anything to you. It's a very temporary, like overpowered, busted thing. And the best way to deal with this is just going to be avoiding it, because if you aren't controlling it, you can't actually fight back versus it or do anything. And as I said, it has like a fixed time anyways. So you're best just getting out of there and trying to avoid it completely, and then playing, normally once the rest of the match has, or once that 90 seconds has passed. You can actually see the ship on the map when it's active, and it typically just travels in a straight line. So you can look at the ship on the map. It's very large, project what a straight line would be from there, and then just try to not be in that area. Going far out of the way, whether it's like into storm or whatever, it shouldn't really be that big of a deal since it's only second zone. You just really want to avoid this. Having spaceships or, TIE fighters and X-Wings of your own can really help. Having a car can help, although it can shoot through cars. The car would just be really beneficial for like getting you out of that area, And then another thing that's going to really help is going to be the Rift to Go, because that was actually unvaulted in today's update. If you guys haven't played when the Rift to Go is in the game, it's an item where you just, use it and you spawn in a rift, and then you fly around and, you can redeploy. And this is really good for escaping bad situations. It's really good for rotating. Last season, we had the Rift to Go launcher where it was like a weapon where you could shoot it. This is a single use item, and you can carry 2 in a stack. But either way, if you have one of these and, the Star Destroyer is targeting you, you could rift out of there and hopefully get away. And as I said, any sort of bad situation can potentially be solved with the Rift to Go. If you're using it to run away from a normal opponent, though, you do leave yourself pretty vulnerable to them just shooting you with whatever weapons they have. And the A280 this season is so easy to use in terms of recoil that you can definitely beam people out of the sky that are using the Rift to Go, especially if they're using it when weak. Because what will happen is a lot of players will kind of realize they're losing a fight, pop their Rift to Go, trying to escape, but now they're in the sky already weak, and those are going to be easy cleanup kills. So like Rift to Go is a decent item, but I feel like it's often not the greatest, and a lot of times can just end up in getting people killed. The only time I would really want to use it is if I just had no mobility at all, or like I said, if I was in a bad situation in terms of the Star Destroyer, then I would definitely want a Rift to Go out of there and try to end up like somewhere behind the Star Destroyer. That way you're just like completely out of its path. Another item that was unvaulted today is going to be the Grapple glove. This is Fortnite's version of the Spider-Man web shooter. It came out like a few seasons after we had the Spidey, but it is a very intuitive and very easy to use mobility item. You basically just hold your activation button, you'll attach onto something, and then you can swing. If you release the button, you drop down. And the main kind of way you want to use this movement item is by swinging from object to object. There will be little dots in terms of what you can attach to. And then you just release your activation button and then press it again and then hold during the swing to swing around. As I said, I think it is incredibly easy and intuitive to use. That is something that a lot of players, remarked about the Spidey web shooters when we had the Spidey web shooters in the loot pool, was just how easy and intuitive it was to use and how it just felt very natural. And I think the Grapple glove is the same thing. One thing you do have to keep in mind with this, however, is when you land, you get a cooldown. So you want to keep chaining the movement to move as much as possible. If you land after using it, you get a cooldown. And if you've already used several swings, I think it's like 15 seconds. If you've only used one, I think it's 5. But either way, you don't want to get caught in that cooldown if you're in a situation where you need to use the mobility item. And that's why this really isn't my favorite mobility item. And it was during the Spider-Man season. It was incredibly good. But recent times, this hasn't been something I enjoyed very much because you're very vulnerable if you get shot out. If an enemy shoots you when you're using it, it breaks your thing and then your item goes on cooldown. And that is going to be very problematic if you're trying to use it to run away from somebody or to push somebody. I'll have a clip on screen now where I'm incredibly weak. I believe I had like 3 HP in this clip, and the enemy tries to push me with the grapple glove. And since I can just shoot him and then detach him from his, grapple, he gets stuck in kind of no man's land, and I'm very one-shot, but I have a head glitch and he's stuck out in the open and his item is on cooldown, and I'm able to just like fully turn that fight even though I should have no business winning that. And that's one thing I don't really like about this item, is just like the enemy having a say in whether or not you're using your mobility item leaves you very vulnerable if you're trying to use it to reposition in a fight or escape a fight, push an enemy. And even if you're using it to just travel the map, if somebody, knows you're using it, gets first shot on you, you could get kind of stranded in no man's land. So it's like a decent travel mobility, but there's no world in which I would rate this higher than cars for travel mobility, because a car doesn't get stopped off one single shot, and it offers protection as well. And I feel like you go just as fast in a car. So when it comes to like travel mobility, I would still much rather have a car, but I would rather have the grapple glove than no mobility at all. And that's kind of how I feel about this item. The final item that was added today is going to be the Junk Rift. This is an item that you throw and it drops something from the sky and hits for like 100. This has never really been that great in zero build. It's more of like, maybe you get it off spawn and somebody's in a house and you can throw it at them. But I don't think it's that great, and it's definitely not going to be something I go out of my way to carry. And that just kind of is what it is. There was something that was vaulted today that definitely impacts the game, and that is going to be the water and air sprites and Shogun X Island. So Fortnite Status posted this and basically said they removed these items because of the Star Destroyer Bombardment, and when the Star Destroyer Bombardment is gone, these things will return. I don't know if that's for the rest of the season or what, but as it is now, there's no more air sprites, there's no more water sprites, and Island will not be spawning in 4th zone. And so you can no longer get the Super Shield Medallion from Shogun X, you can no longer get the Mythic Pistol, but most importantly to me is you can no longer get shockwaves by turning in the air sprite to the shrine. Fortnite fixed it like a week or two ago where you can now get shocks again from turning in the air sprite. For whatever reason, in today's update, they decided to vault the sprites, and so you can no longer do that, and that makes getting shockwaves much harder and much more just like kind of RNG again. So you might find yourself having to use like the grapple glove, the Mandalorian jetpack, even if that isn't your favorite mobility item. At the start of the season, lots of players were having a hard time getting mobility because shocks were just RNG to get. And now it's back to being that way, but at least we have a few more mobility items in the loot pool, like the Mandalorian jetpack, like the grapple glove. So even if you don't get shockwaves, you do have better supplementary mobility. And that's kind of the main time I find myself using those items. And then the final thing I want to talk about is there is now a countdown for this season's live event near Leia outside Brutal Boxcars. And it is counting down, I believe, until June 7th at 2 p.m. Eastern time. That is when the, finale event for this season is expected to take place. But that is going to be it for this video. As always, if you guys did find this to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, comment down below what you think of this update, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.